Vaquero, soy la niña Apache que salvaste. Why hoy he venido a ser tu esposa? The sun was already high when the vaquero rode alone across the wide, quiet land. The ground was dry and cracked, and the air felt heavy, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. This land was not kind, but it was familiar to him. He had grown up learning how to read the sky, how to follow the wind, and how to survive where many could not. His horse moved steadily beneath him, used to long hours and silent journeys. The vaquero was a man of few words. Life had taught him that silence often said more than speech. Each day followed the same rhythm: work, rest, and thought. He did not expect surprises, and he did not look for trouble. His only goal that day was to check a distant part of the land before returning home before sunset. As he rode near a line of broken rocks, something felt different. The horse slowed on its own, ears turning sharply. The vaquero noticed faint marks on the ground, not clear footprints, but signs that someone had passed through recently. This area was far from any path people normally used. His hand rested near the saddle, not out of fear but habit. Then he saw her. She was small, sitting close to the rocks, trying to make herself invisible. Her clothes were torn and covered with dust. Her hair was messy, and her face showed both fear and pain. She could not have been more than a child. When their eyes met, she froze, unsure whether to run or stay still. The vaquero did not move at once. He slowly got down from his horse and stepped back a little, making sure he did not seem threatening. He raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. The child watched him closely, ready to escape if needed. He noticed she was injured. One of her legs was scraped badly, and she looked weak from thirst. The sun had not been gentle with her. Anyone left alone in this place for too long could lose hope quickly. The vaquero felt a tight feeling in his chest. He had seen hardship before, but seeing it in a child was different. He knew who she was by her clothing and features, an Apache girl, far from where she should have been. Helping her was not simple. In those times, fear and misunderstanding ruled many hearts. Helping someone like her could bring trouble, but leaving her there would almost certainly mean something worse. He made his choice without speaking. Slowly, he took a water skin from his saddle and placed it on the ground between them. Then he stepped back and waited. The girl hesitated, watching his face, searching for lies. After a long moment, thirst won. She crawled forward and drank carefully, as if afraid the water might disappear. When she finished, she looked up at him again. Her fear had not gone, but there was something new in her eyes, confusion mixed with relief. The vaquero knelt and showed her a small cloth and medicine he carried for himself. Using simple gestures, he asked if he could help her leg. She did not answer, but she did not pull away when he gently cleaned the wound. His movements were slow and careful, as if each touch mattered. The child winced but stayed still. She was stronger than she looked. As he worked, he wondered how she had ended up alone. Maybe she had become separated from her people. Maybe she had run in fear. The truth did not matter as much as what was right in front of him. She was alone, and she needed help. When her leg was wrapped, he sat back and thought. Taking her with him was risky. Leaving her was worse. He decided to guide her toward a safer area where she could find her people or someone who knew how to help her return. He pointed toward the horizon and then toward her, using simple signs to explain they would move. She seemed unsure, but she stood slowly, testing her injured leg. It hurt, but she could walk. The journey was quiet. The vaquero walked beside his horse, staying close to the girl but not crowding her. He watched the land carefully, alert to danger, while she watched him just as closely. Trust did not come easily to either of them. As the sun began to lower, the air cooled slightly. They reached an area where signs of other people were more likely: old tracks, broken branches, places where fires had once been lit. The vaquero stopped there. This was as far as he could safely go. He knelt again and looked at the girl. He pointed toward the land ahead, then placed his hand on his chest and bowed his head slightly. It was his way of saying goodbye, of wishing her safety. The girl stared at him, as if trying to understand something too big for words. Then, unexpectedly, she stepped forward and touched his hand briefly. Her touch was light, but it carried weight. Gratitude, fear, and something deeper passed between them in that silent moment. Without another word, she turned and began walking toward the open land. She did not look back. The vaquero watched until she disappeared from sight. Then he mounted his horse and rode away, feeling that the day had changed him in a way he could not explain. Years would pass and life would move on. But neither of them would forget that day, the day when kindness crossed boundaries and two lives were quietly connected in the middle of the desert. Time moved forward as it always does, without asking anyone's permission. The desert stayed the same, but the people living within it changed, slowly and quietly. For the vaquero, days returned to their familiar pattern. He woke before sunrise, worked until his body felt heavy, and rested only when night finally claimed the land. From the outside, nothing about his life looked different. But inside him, something had shifted. At first, he thought the memory of the Apache girl would fade like many other moments from the past. Life on the frontier was full of brief encounters that were never seen again. Still, some nights when the fire burned low and the world grew silent, her face returned to his thoughts. He remembered her eyes wide with fear, yet strong. He remembered the way she accepted help without words, and the way she walked away without looking back. He often wondered if she had survived. The question followed him during long rides and quiet meals. He told himself it was useless to think about it. He had done what he could. The rest was out of his hands. Yet the human heart does not always obey reason. Somewhere deep inside, he hoped she had found safety, family, and peace. The seasons changed. The land turned harsh in summer and cold in winter. The vaquero grew older, though not by much. Lines formed on his face from sun and wind, and his hair slowly lost its dark color. He became known as a reliable man, someone who kept his word and minded his own business. People respected him, though few truly knew him. He never married, not because he disliked the idea, but because life had not placed the right person in his path. He believed things happened when they were meant to. If that day came, he would accept it. If not, he would live as he always had, quietly. Far away within her own world, the Apache girl also moved forward in time. She returned to her people after days of careful travel. When they found her, weak but alive, her family held her as if she had returned from death itself. She told them what had happened in simple words. She spoke of the long walk, the fear, and the stranger who helped her without asking for anything in return. Some listened in silence. Others warned her that the outside world was dangerous and unpredictable, but no one could deny that kindness had saved her life. As the years passed, the girl grew into a young woman. Life shaped her through responsibility and tradition. She learned the ways of her people, the stories of the elders, and the strength required to survive in a changing world. She learned when to speak and when to stay silent. She learned patience, yet the memory of the vaquero remained clear in her heart. She did not think of him every day, but she never forgot him. To her, he represented a truth she had learned early, that compassion could exist even where fear ruled. His face became a symbol of hope, reminding her that not all paths were closed and not all strangers meant harm. Sometimes, when others spoke harshly about people beyond their land, she stayed quiet. She knew better. She had lived a moment that could not be erased. As she grew older, questions began to form in her mind. Gratitude had once been enough, but now she wondered why that meeting had stayed with her so strongly. She questioned whether life had more planned for her than what she could see. These thoughts did not come from restlessness, but from curiosity and purpose. Meanwhile, the vaquero continued to live simply. He built small routines that brought him peace, fixing old tools, caring for his horse, watching the sky at dusk. Yet sometimes, during moments of stillness, he felt a quiet emptiness. Not loneliness exactly, but a sense that something important had passed through his life and left a mark. He never spoke about the girl. Not because he felt shame, but because the memory felt private, almost sacred. It belonged to a moment of pure choice, untouched by judgment or reward. Years slipped by like grains of sand. The young woman began to feel a pull she could not explain. She listened to her inner voice, the one that grew stronger with time. It told her that her story was not finished, that the kindness she received was not meant to remain unanswered. Gratitude, she believed, was not only a feeling, it was a responsibility. She spoke with her elders carefully and respectfully. She did not demand anything. She explained her thoughts, her memories, and the bond she felt to a past moment. Some elders listened thoughtfully. Others questioned her. Change was never easy, but they saw her strength and sincerity. The idea of finding the vaquero was not driven by fantasy. She knew he might be gone, or unwilling, or unchanged. She accepted all possibilities. What mattered was facing the truth of her own heart. For the vaquero, life continued in quiet repetition. One evening, as the sun fell low and painted the land in gold, he stood outside his home and felt a strange sense of expectation. He could not explain it. Nothing looked different. Yet something inside him stirred, like the air before a storm. He brushed the thought aside. Life had taught him not to expect too much. Neither of them knew that time, which had kept them apart for so long, was slowly guiding their paths back toward one another. The memory of a single kind act had survived years of distance, shaping two lives in ways neither fully understood. What began as a silent rescue had grown into something deeper, something waiting patiently for the right moment to return. And that moment was closer than either of them realized. The day began like many others for the vaquero. He rose early, fed his horse, and stepped outside to feel the air. The sky was clear and the land looked calm. Nothing suggested that this day would be different. Yet deep inside, he felt a quiet restlessness he could not explain. He ignored it and went about his work. By late morning, he noticed movement far across the open land. At first, he thought it was just heat playing tricks on his eyes, but as the figure came closer, he could see it was a person walking with purpose. Visitors were rare in this area. He stood still, watching carefully. The figure was a woman. She walked steadily, her posture strong, her steps confident. She was not lost. She was not afraid. As she drew nearer, the vaquero felt a strange pull, like a memory trying to rise to the surface of his mind. Still, he did not move. When she stopped a short distance away, she looked directly at him. Her eyes were calm, serious, and full of meaning. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy but not uncomfortable. It felt necessary. Then she spoke. Her voice was steady, respectful, and clear. She told him who she was. She told him she was the Apache girl he had helped many years ago. The words struck him like a sudden wind. He looked at her more closely now. The child he remembered was gone, but something familiar remained. The eyes, the quiet strength, the way she stood, balanced and sure. Slowly, understanding settled into his expression. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from surprise and disbelief. He struggled to find words. He had never imagined this moment. He had never expected to see her again. She continued speaking, telling him how she had survived, how she had grown, and how she had carried the memory of that day with her through the years. She did not speak with drama or emotion meant to impress. She spoke simply, honestly, as one person speaking to another. The vaquero listened without interrupting. He felt something stir inside him, something he had buried long ago. The past, which he had thought was finished, stood before him in living form. He invited her to sit and rest. He offered water just as he had years ago. The small act felt like closing a circle. She accepted with a gentle nod. They sat outside, the land stretching endlessly around them. The world felt quiet, as if giving them space. She told him why she had come. She explained that she did not come out of duty or debt. She came because she believed that some moments were meant to grow, not disappear. She said his kindness had shaped her understanding of life and choice. She wanted him to know that what he had done mattered. The vaquero lowered his eyes for a moment. He had never seen himself as important. He had only done what felt right. Hearing her words made him uncomfortable, but also deeply moved. He told her that he never expected thanks, that he had often wondered if she was safe, but believed it was not his place to know more. He admitted that seeing her again felt unreal. They spoke for a long time. They spoke about life, about change, about the weight of choices. They did not rush. There was no need. Every word felt meaningful. As the sun moved across the sky, the woman finally shared the deeper reason for her visit. She spoke carefully, choosing her words with respect. She told him she had come to see if the bond they shared still held meaning, not as a memory, but as a future. She said she believed that what began in kindness could become something lasting if both hearts agreed. The vaquero felt the weight of her words settle on him. He did not answer immediately. He stood and walked a few steps away, looking out at the land he had known all his life. His thoughts raced, yet his mind stayed clear. He knew this was not a moment to take lightly. There were differences between them, histories that could not be ignored. Life would not be easy, but he also knew something else. He felt no fear standing beside her, no doubt in her presence. Only a quiet sense of rightness, the same feeling he had trusted all his life. He returned and faced her. He told her he respected her courage and her honesty. He said that what she asked deserved time and thought, not a quick answer. He wanted to be certain, not just hopeful. She accepted this without disappointment. She had not come for instant promises. She had come for truth. As evening approached, he offered her a place to rest for the night at a respectful distance with full understanding. She accepted, grateful for his care and consideration. That night the vaquero did not sleep easily. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the land. His life, once simple and predictable, now stood at the edge of change. He felt both calm and awake in a way he had not felt in years. Outside, the woman sat quietly beneath the stars. She felt no regret, just patience. Both of them understood that the next choice would shape everything that followed. And for the first time in a long while, neither felt alone in facing what came next. The morning began quietly, with the soft light of the sun spilling over the desert. The vaquero and the woman sat apart for a moment, each lost in thought. The air was still, yet full of expectation. Neither spoke at first. Words were not needed immediately. The silence carried the weight of years, the weight of past choices, and the weight of lives shaped by different paths. The woman finally spoke, her voice steady but gentle. She told the vaquero about the years she had lived after he had helped her. She described her family, the lessons of her people, and the ways she had grown strong through hardships and responsibility. She did not speak to impress him, nor to make him feel proud. She spoke honestly, with the calmness of someone who had lived a full life, yet never forgotten a single act of kindness. The vaquero listened, letting her words settle into his mind. Each sentence seemed to pull the years away, bringing back the memory of a frightened child, small and alone, hiding among the rocks. He remembered her fear, her courage, and the way she had trusted him when the world had offered nothing but danger. Now, seeing her as a grown woman, he realized how much time had passed and how much had changed for both of them. He spoke next, carefully. He told her that her return surprised him, that he had never expected to see her again. He admitted that he had often thought of her, wondering if she had survived, hoping silently that she had found safety. But he also reminded her that life had separated them for a long time and many things had changed in both their worlds. The woman nodded, understanding. She knew the past could not be undone, and that their meeting now was not a continuation of what had been, but the start of something new. She explained that she had come because she wanted to honor the bond created by that first act of compassion, not because she felt obligated. She wanted them both to choose freely, without pressure or expectation. The vaquero appreciated her honesty. It was a rare quality, and it reminded him why he had felt drawn to her all those years ago. He realized that what he had once thought of as a simple act of kindness had grown into something much larger. It had shaped her life, and now it had the potential to shape theirs together if they both agreed. They spent the day walking together across the land, moving slowly and speaking little at first. The woman asked questions about his life, about his routines, his work, and the people he knew. The vaquero answered with quiet detail, showing her the rhythms of his daily life. He shared stories of the land, of the seasons, and of small events that had meaning only to someone who had lived there long enough to notice. She listened with genuine interest, sometimes smiling at the simplicity of his explanations, sometimes pausing to reflect on how different her own life had been. She told him stories from her own past as well, about learning the ways of her people, the responsibilities she carried, and the strength she had built over the years. They found common ground in shared values, courage, honesty, and respect for life. As the sun began to sink low in the sky, the conversation shifted. The woman asked the vaquero how he felt about their differences of culture, history, and expectation. She asked if he could see a future where both could live together with mutual respect, without one having to give up who they were. The vaquero paused. He knew the question was important, not just for the present, but for everything that could come after. He thought about his life, about the values he held, and about the lessons of patience and understanding that had guided him. He realized that love or partnership could not exist without mutual respect. He had helped her once out of compassion, but now any decision had to be rooted in truth, not memory. He spoke carefully, saying that he could imagine a future where they supported each other, but only if it was built slowly and honestly. He wanted to be sure that they were both ready for the responsibility such a life would demand. She nodded, agreeing that patience and truth were more important than speed. For hours they continued their walk, moving through familiar desert paths, stopping to observe the small signs of life. A bird in a tree, the patterns of shadows on the rocks, the soft movements of a lizard in the sand. Every moment felt meaningful. Each step they took together was part of a process of understanding, a process of building trust and connection that could last a lifetime. As night approached, they returned to the small shelter where the vaquero lived. The woman accepted his offer to stay for the night, appreciating the respect and care he showed. They shared a simple meal, speaking quietly about ordinary things, food, weather, and the small routines that made life predictable and safe. After dinner, they sat by the fire. The flames flickered across their faces, highlighting the lines of years lived, the experiences that had shaped them, and the understanding that had grown between them. The woman spoke about her hopes for the future, emphasizing that any decision would come from her own free will, not from obligation or expectation. The vaquero listened, feeling the weight of responsibility. He realized that true partnership required patience, understanding, and equality. It could not be rushed, and it could not be based solely on past actions. He respected her courage, her honesty, and her thoughtfulness. He knew that if they chose to walk the path together, it would need to be built on shared values and trust. That night, neither slept deeply. Both were awake at times, listening to the quiet of the desert, thinking about the future. The woman reflected on the journey that had brought her back, on the years she had lived with gratitude and memory. The vaquero thought about the life he had lived, the choices he had made, and the possibility of a new chapter that could begin with honesty and respect. By morning, a sense of calm had settled over them. They understood that their meeting was more than a reunion. It was a chance to make deliberate choices. The bond formed by a single act of kindness could now grow into something meaningful, but only if nurtured with care, patience, and mutual respect. Both knew that the days ahead would not be simple. Differences of culture, expectation, and experience would present challenges. But for the first time in a long while, they felt ready to face those challenges together, with honesty, understanding, and the quiet strength that had carried them both through the years. They rose with the sun, ready to continue their journey, not as strangers, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two people considering a life together, built on truth, respect, and choice. The desert stretched endlessly around them, silent yet full of promise, a witness to the careful steps of two lives converging in trust and understanding. The day began with a soft golden light spreading across the desert. The air was cool and the land felt calm, almost as if it knew something important was about to happen. The vaquero and the woman woke early, each carrying thoughts from the night before. Neither spoke at first. They simply moved through their morning routines, feeding the horse, checking supplies, and tending to small tasks that had become second nature. Yet under the surface, both were aware that today could change everything. They shared a quiet breakfast together. The woman smiled as she poured water from a small jar, and the vaquero offered bread and fruit. There was no tension, no hurry. Their conversation was simple about the sun, the wind, and the patterns of the land. But each word carried a deeper meaning. Each small gesture of kindness and care was a reminder of the bond they had begun to build, one based on understanding and respect rather than obligation. After breakfast, they sat together beneath the shade of a lone tree. The woman looked at the vaquero and spoke first. She told him she had come with a choice in her heart, not a demand. She wanted to walk forward together, but only if he also felt the same way. Her voice was calm and steady, without expectation, yet full of hope. The vaquero looked at her, remembering the frightened child she had once been, and now seeing the strong, thoughtful woman she had become. He realized that life had given him a second chance, not to rescue her but to stand beside her as equals. He told her that he felt the same way. He had thought of her often over the years, remembering her courage, her gratitude, and her quiet strength. He had never expected to meet her again, and yet, now that she was here, he could not imagine a life without her presence. They rose and began to walk together across the open land. Each step was careful, deliberate. They spoke little, letting the rhythm of their movement and the vastness of the desert carry their thoughts. The silence was comfortable, not empty. It was a space where they could think, reflect, and simply be together without words. As they walked, the woman shared her vision for the future. She spoke about her hopes for a life built on partnership, where each respected the other's choices, strengths, and traditions. She wanted a life where they could learn from one another, grow together, and support each other through challenges. The vaquero listened closely, feeling the truth and sincerity in her words. He realized that love was not simply a feeling, but a decision made daily through understanding, patience, and care. They stopped at a small stream, the water clear and cool. The woman knelt to drink, and the vaquero offered his hand to steady her. They laughed softly as the water refreshed them both. In that moment, the distance of years, the hardships they had faced, and the fear of the unknown seemed to fall away. All that remained was the present, their shared choice to step into a future together. The journey back to the vaquero's home was slow. They moved carefully, observing the land, the small signs of life, a lizard darting across the rocks, birds calling from the trees, the wind carrying the scent of wildflowers. Each small detail reminded them of the world around them and the life they were choosing to share. When they reached the shelter, the woman paused at the doorway. She looked at the vaquero and spoke with quiet certainty. She told him that she trusted him, that she had come to build a life together based on honesty, respect, and mutual care. She did not speak of obligations or debts, only of choice. The vaquero nodded, feeling the weight and beauty of her words. He knew that their bond was not about the past alone, but about the life they could create together from this moment forward. That evening they sat by the fire as the sky turned shades of orange and pink. They spoke of small things, the work that needed to be done, the meals they would share, the routines of life. But underneath every word was a deeper meaning, a commitment to face life together, with courage and care. The vaquero shared stories of his past, of the land, and the people he had known. The woman shared stories of her growth, her family, and the lessons she had learned. Together, they discovered a balance, a way to honor each other's past while looking forward to a shared future. As night fell, the desert stretched out around them, calm and quiet. The stars appeared one by one, reflecting in their eyes. They did not need words to express what they felt. Sitting side by side, they understood that they had made a choice together, a choice to walk forward as partners, equal in respect and strength. The following days were filled with planning and small steps. They worked together, tending to the land, caring for the horse, and preparing their home. Each task, no matter how small, was an opportunity to learn more about each other, to practice patience, and to build trust. They laughed together, shared stories, and discovered the joy in companionship. Neighbors and travelers noticed the woman with the vaquero. Some were curious, others cautious. But the couple moved through life with quiet confidence, showing that respect, honesty, and mutual care could overcome fear and judgment. Their relationship was not a sudden romance, but a steady bond formed through understanding, patience, and shared values. Months passed, and their connection deepened. They learned to communicate without misunderstanding, to support each other in challenges, and to celebrate small victories. Their lives intertwined naturally, like two rivers meeting and flowing together, each strengthening the other. The woman often thought back to the day the vaquero had saved her. She realized that act of kindness had been the seed that grew into their shared life. She did not owe him anything, but the memory reminded her that compassion had the power to change lives. The vaquero, in turn, reflected on how the small choices he had made years ago had shaped not only her life but his own. Together, they had created something neither could have imagined alone. One evening, as the sun set, they walked to the top of a small hill overlooking the land. The sky was painted in deep colors, and the desert seemed endless. They stood quietly, hand in hand, feeling the weight and beauty of what they had chosen. The vaquero spoke softly, saying that he had learned the true meaning of courage and kindness through their journey together. The woman nodded, acknowledging that trust and patience had guided her heart. They did not need grand gestures or words to define their bond. Their life together was built on small, steady acts of love, respect, and understanding. They knew challenges would come, as they always did, but they also knew that together they could face anything. As the stars appeared, they sat together, side by side, watching the night sky. The desert was quiet, the air calm. Both understood that life had given them a second chance. Not a chance to correct the past, but a chance to walk forward together, honestly and freely. And so, their story continued, not with the loud celebrations of the world, but with the quiet strength of two lives joined by choice, respect, and compassion. Every day became an opportunity to nurture their bond, to grow together, and to honor the connection that had begun so many years ago. On that quiet desert day, when a small act of kindness had changed both of their lives forever. They walked forward into the future, aware of the challenges, yet grounded in the certainty that the life they built together would be one of honesty, care, and unwavering respect. A life that grew naturally from courage, trust, and the quiet power of human kindness.